All right, let's talk about a problem that, let's be honest, every single dev team runs into. You've built these amazing, powerful APIs, but now you've got to build a whole universe of internal tools on top of them. Today, we're going to be looking at a tool called Cloudweb, which is designed to solve exactly that headache.
So, you've done all the hard work, right? Your back-end services, your Cloudgate APIs, they're all built, they're tested, they're humming along beautifully. But then comes that big question. How do you get all that power into the hands of your non-technical colleagues so they can actually use it?
And that, my friends, is what I like to call the internal tool headache. Every new little process, every simple admin task, suddenly it needs a custom front end. It's this huge drain on your resources, and you're pulling developers off the core product just to build, another internal dashboard.
And the list just goes on, doesn't it? You need admin consoles, you need support dashboards, data entry forms, approval workflows, you name it. Each one is basically a mini project that needs to be built and then maintained. It just feels like this cycle that never, ever ends.
So this is exactly where Cloudweb comes into the picture. It becomes the visual front end for that powerful Cloudgate backend you already have, and it lets you just completely sidestep that whole painful process of custom front-end development for all those internal tools.
Okay, so here's the key thing to get. Cloudweb is a visual builder specifically for internal management screens. This is not for building your big public-facing marketing website. Nope. The whole idea is to keep all your business logic where it belongs, safely in Cloudgate, and just use Cloudweb to build the interfaces on top of it.
And look, just because it's fast doesn't mean you're sacrificing quality. Not at all. You can build some really polished, professional-looking apps with this. The process is super straightforward. You build your interface, you integrate it with your APIs, and you publish. That's it. Simple as that.
Okay, before we get any deeper, there's a really important distinction we need to make. See, the Cloudweb platform is really made up of two parts, the web builder and the back office. It's pretty common for folks to mix these two up, so let's just clear that up right now.
So, here's the easiest way to think about it. The web builder, that's your editor. Your creative space, right? That's where you're dragging and dropping, designing pages, and hooking up widgets. Now, the Cloudweb back office, that's more like mission control. It's where you go to actually run the platform. You're checking your metrics, looking at logs, managing users. So, one is for creating, the other is for operating.
And here's what that back office looks like. You can see right away, this is all about admin and keeping an eye on things. You've got your metrics, your user API usage, even geographic data. Basically, everything you need to see how the tools you've built are doing.
All right, so now that we know the difference between the builder and the back office, let's get to the fun part. Let's see just how crazy fast you can put together a working page. This is really where you see the magic of the visual editor.
I mean, it really just boils down to these three simple steps. First, you start with a layout. Then, you add your widgets. And finally, you hook them up to your data. That's the whole process.
So, step one, you pick a layout. This is what's going to define the basic skeleton of your page. You're not just staring at a totally blank canvas. You get to choose a structure, maybe a single column or two columns, whatever makes sense. It gives you a nice scaffold to build on.
Okay, next up, you start filling that layout with widgets. Cloudweb gives you this whole library of pre-built components for pretty much anything you'd need, right? We're talking tables, forms, charts, counters, the usual suspects. You literally just pick the one you want and drop it right onto your page.
And then the final and probably most important step is connecting those widgets to your Cloudgate APIs. The second that connection is made, boom, your page is live. It's functional. It's pulling in and showing real data. You can go from a blank page to a working dashboard in like minutes. It's awesome.
Okay, so that seems kind of magical, right? Let's pull back the curtain a bit and see how that connection, the one between the widgets on the front end and your APIs on the back end, actually works. This is really the secret sauce of Cloudweb.
I mean, the basic question is this. You drag a table onto the page, how in the world does it know what data to show? Well, the answer is this cool little thing called an API input action. Inside the builder, you're literally just pointing a widget at one of your Cloudgate API endpoints. That action is basically telling the widget, hey, when this page loads, I want you to go to this URL and grab your data. It's a super direct, super clear connection.
Okay, so that makes sense for loading the data when the page first opens. But what about when you have a bunch of different widgets on the same page? Like, let's say you have a form to add a new user, and right next to it you have a table that lists all the users. If you add someone in the form, how does the table know it needs to refresh itself?
This is where another really smart system comes in, and it's called event keys. The best way to think about it is like a radio signal. So after that form on the left successfully saves into your user, it broadcasts a little signal. And let's say that signal is called Profiles Table. Well, the table over on the right, it's been told to listen for that exact signal. As soon as it hears that, it knows, aha, time to refresh my data. This is how you build a totally reactive page without having to write a single line of complicated front-end state management code. It's pretty brilliant.
So, when you put all these pieces together, it really does feel like you're giving your team a new superpower. You can suddenly build all those internal tools you need in just a fraction of the time and with way less effort.
So what can you actually do with this? What does it look like in the real world? Well, you can spin up a support desk that talks directly to your real APIs. You could build out admin consoles for approvals, or maybe some onboarding tools for HR, or even self-service portals for your partners. All of a sudden, that live KPI dashboard that your manager's been asking for, well, that's not a month-long project anymore. It might just be an afternoon's work.
And that really brings me to my final thought for you. When you see just how fast you can build these powerful, secure tools that are plugged right into your backend, the real question isn't just what will you build first, it's what custom front end will you stop building first? And what are you going to do with all that time you just got back?